When I picked up the phone that morning, I didn't expect my daughter's voice to sound so entitled. "Mom, in an hour, we'll be there with 20. Hope the house is ready." I froze, clutching the phone tighter. 20 what? I asked. "People, Mom. Friends, kids, my in-laws, everyone's excited to see your country house. Don't stress, you love hosting." Then she hung up. I stood in the middle of my newly bought country house, dusty floors, unpacked boxes, and a fridge that barely worked. It wasn't ready for one guest, let alone 20. That house was supposed to be my peace, my escape, my new beginning after everything I had survived. But somehow, even here, I was being turned into a servant again. I had just retired from 20 years of working 2 jobs, a diner waitress by morning, a store clerk by evening. I saved every penny, skipped vacations, and ignored everyone who said, "You'll never buy a place alone at your age." Yet here I was, standing in the living room of my very own property, peeling wallpaper, creaky floorboards, and all. It was mine. And now, my daughter, the one I raised alone, was bringing 20 people over like it was a family resort. I glanced around. No curtains, no chairs, no working stove. Just me, a half-empty box of cleaning supplies, and the haunting echo of old laughter in an empty house. An hour later, I heard tires crunching on the gravel road. Then voices. Loud, careless, happy voices. "Oh my God, look at this place. It's rustic. Hey, where's Mom? I'm starving." They burst in like it was a party. My daughter Emily, her husband Mark, his loud mother, their friends, their kids. Mark looked around and smirked. "So this is your big dream house, huh? Needs some serious work." His mother laughed. "Well, good thing she has all that free time now. Retirement project." I swallowed hard. My hands trembled around the tray I was holding with lemonade. I wasn't even angry yet, just embarrassed. Like I'd been caught pretending to have more than I did. When Mark put his muddy shoes on my white couch cover, I said softly, "Please don't." He cut me off. "Relax, Mom. It's just a couch." Emily laughed and joined him. Then she turned to her friends. "Don't mind her. She gets emotional about her stuff." That line. She gets emotional about her stuff. Like all I ever did was cling to things, not the life I lost raising her. Later, in the kitchen, I overheard her say, "It's cute how she still thinks she can manage all this." I told Mark we'll probably end up buying it from her when she realizes it's too much. That's when the lemonade tray slipped from my hand. The glasses shattered. 20 faces turned toward me, some startled, some pitying, none respectful. Mark chuckled. "Careful, Mom. Maybe let us handle things now." I bent down to pick up the glass shards, my knees aching, my throat tight. But as I stared at the reflection of my face in the broken pieces, wrinkles, tears, dust, something shifted. No more begging for respect. No more being treated like the help in my own home. They thought they were coming for a weekend getaway. They had no idea they were about to witness my awakening. Because this house wasn't just walls and wood. It was my proof that I could still build something, alone. And I wasn't about to let anyone take that away. They filled my kitchen like they owned it, kids screaming, adults opening my fridge without asking, laughter echoing off the bare walls. I stood there, invisible in my own home. Mark's mother waved her hand toward me. "Evelyn, be a dear and bring out some plates, would you?" "Excuse me," I said, barely holding my voice steady. She smiled, that fake sweet smile older women reserve for when they think they're in charge. "You don't mind, right? You're always so helpful." Helpful. That word used to make me proud. But not that day. The fridge held nothing but milk, eggs, and an old jar of pickles. I didn't plan for guests. I planned for peace. Still, I boiled some pasta, made sandwiches, and put together whatever I could. My daughter watched but didn't lift a finger. When I asked her to help, she just said, "Mom, relax. You get so tense about little things. It's just family." I looked around. Her husband's friends were lounging on my porch, drinking beer. The kids were tracking dirt all over my new rug. Someone even put their feet on my coffee table. Family. Right. That night, I went to bed early. Or at least I tried to. But I couldn't sleep. Their laughter downstairs reminded me of all the times I was told to stay quiet, or not make things awkward. I kept replaying their words. "We'll probably buy it from her. She gets emotional about her stuff. It's just a couch." No one saw what I'd sacrificed to get here. The years of double shifts, the nights I skipped dinner so Emily could have new shoes, the loneliness after my divorce when I kept telling myself things would get better. They just saw an old woman clinging to a house she didn't deserve. That night, something inside me hardened. The next morning, I woke up before dawn. The air was cool, the sun still hidden. I made myself a cup of coffee and sat on the porch, watching the fog roll over the fields. For the first time in years, I felt angry, not the sad kind, but the clean kind. The kind that makes you think clearly. I opened my laptop and started typing. First, an email to my lawyer, the one who helped me buy this house. I asked him about transfer rights, ownership laws, and eviction notices. Then, a message to the real estate agent, asking about short-term rentals and property management. If they thought I'd crumble and sell this house to them, they had another thing coming. This home would become my source of income, not my burden. When I went back inside, the house looked worse than ever. Dishes piled high. Food crusted on the counter. My daughter's mother-in-law was complaining about the hot water again. Mark walked past me, shirtless, scratching his chest. "Morning, Mom. You might want to get the plumber checked, shower's weak." I smiled. Calmly. Too calmly. "I will," I said. "After you all leave." He laughed, thinking it was a joke. But it wasn't. By noon, I had decided. I wasn't going to confront them in anger. I was going to teach them what respect looks like. And respect, I realized, starts with boundaries. So I started packing their things, the spare blankets, the dishes they used, even the beer cans left outside. When Emily walked in, she froze. "Mom, what are you doing?" I turned to her and said softly, "You said you'd be here for the weekend. It's been 24 hours. Her jaw dropped. "You're kicking us out?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't apologize. I just said, "No, sweetheart. I'm reclaiming my home." Her friends went silent. Mark chuckled awkwardly. "Come on, don't be dramatic." I looked him straight in the eye. Dramatic is expecting a woman to cook, clean, and serve 20 people without even asking. I'm just being practical. For the first time that weekend, no one had anything to say. Emily's voice cracked. "I can't believe you'd do this." I smiled sadly. I can't believe I waited this long. They left an hour later, slamming doors, muttering things like "she's lost it" and "midlife crisis." But as their cars disappeared down the gravel road, I felt something I hadn't in years: freedom. Silence filled the house. My silence. The kind that heals. I walked to the porch again, took a deep breath, and whispered to myself, "This house isn't where I start over. It's where I finally live." After they left, the house felt different. Quieter, yes, but not empty. It was mine again. I stood in the middle of the living room, surrounded by the mess they'd left behind. Soda cans, dirty plates, blankets on the floor. I didn't feel angry anymore. Just clear. I grabbed a trash bag and started cleaning. One piece at a time, I took my space back. Every scrape of a chair, every broken glass I picked up. It was like peeling off years of disrespect that had stuck to me without me noticing. For years, I let people walk all over me because I wanted peace. Now, I realized peace doesn't come from staying quiet. It comes from not allowing the wrong people in. By evening, the house was spotless again. I lit a candle, sat down with a notebook, and started writing plans. Plan A, rent out the place on weekends. Plan B, offer it for small retreats, painting, yoga, women's groups. Plan C, create a community space for women who, like me, needed a reset. I laughed at the irony. I bought this house to escape people, and now I wanted to fill it, just with the right ones. The next day, Emily called. I didn't pick up. She texted, "Mom, are you okay? I didn't mean to upset you. Mark thinks you overreacted. We'll come back next weekend and help you fix things up." Fix things up. That phrase hit a nerve. They didn't want to help. They wanted control, to make me feel incapable, like I needed their help to make my own dream livable. So I didn't reply. Instead, I called my lawyer again. "Mr. Whitman, I need your advice on updating my will," I said. He paused. "Of course. Any specific changes?" "Yes," I said, my voice steady. "I want to make sure that if something happens to me, this house can never be sold without my consent, even after my passing." He was quiet for a second. Then he said, "Good decision, Evelyn. That's smart." 2 days later, I posted an ad online. Country escape for women, rest, heal, and rebuild. Owned and hosted by someone who's been there. Within a week, I got 3 inquiries. One woman wrote, "I left my husband last year. I need a quiet place to think." Another said, "I just want somewhere safe to breathe." I cried reading those messages. Because I knew that pain. I'd lived it. The exhaustion of always being helpful while no one helped you. So I turned my broken weekend into a business. I called it the Willow House. It wasn't fancy, but it was honest, warm, and real. I painted the walls myself, fixed the cabinets, planted flowers along the path. I even learned basic plumbing from YouTube tutorials. Every nail I hammered felt like reclaiming another part of myself. A few weeks later, Emily finally showed up unannounced again. But this time, she wasn't smiling. "Mom, what is this?" she asked, pointing to the small sign at the front gate. "The Willow House, Women Welcome." I smiled. "It's my new project." Her brows furrowed. "You're turning the house into a business? Why? You don't need money." I laughed softly. "It's not about money, Emily. It's about meaning." She crossed her arms. "You're being ridiculous. What will people think?" I met her eyes. "They'll think I finally learned how to respect myself." She stared at me for a moment, maybe trying to recognize the woman in front of her. Then she scoffed. "You know, Mark said you might be having some kind of breakdown. Maybe we should take care of you." That was it. The line that broke the last thread of guilt inside me. I stepped closer, calm but firm. "No, Emily. You don't take care of me anymore. I've done that for both of us your whole life. Now it's my turn." Her lips parted like she wanted to argue, but she didn't. She just shook her head and muttered, "You've changed." I smiled. I finally did. After she left, I sat on the porch again, same chair, same view, but a different feeling. The silence didn't feel heavy this time. It felt powerful, like the quiet right before a storm that only clears the air. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for anyone's approval. I wasn't afraid of being alone. I wasn't a victim anymore. This house had witnessed my humiliation, and now it would witness my rebirth. 2 months passed. The Willow House was coming alive, slowly but beautifully. The first retreat I hosted had 4 women. They came from different places. One was recently divorced, another recovering from burnout, a third starting over after a toxic marriage. We cooked together, painted, cried, and laughed. At night, we sat around the fire pit sharing stories of survival and strength. Every story reminded me I wasn't alone. Every smile reminded me what healing looked like. I didn't need a big family reunion. I needed peace, and women who understood what that word costs. Then, one Friday afternoon, I got a call from Emily again. This time her tone was sharp. "Mom, we're coming this weekend." I sighed. "For what, Emily?" She hesitated. "Dad's old lawyer told Mark your house's value doubled since you bought it. We just think maybe we should discuss future options, family planning." I nearly laughed. Family planning. That's what they were calling it now. I said, "Emily, I already made plans. For myself." She ignored that. "We'll be there Saturday morning." Click. No asking, no courtesy, just assumption. The same entitlement I used to let slide. But not anymore. When they arrived, I was ready. I greeted them politely at the door. Emily, her husband Mark, and his mother again. Mark looked around. "Wow, you fixed this place up nice. You did all this?" "Yes," I said. "Every wall, every flower bed, every guest room." His mother gave a short laugh. "Impressive. So, how much do you rent it for? Maybe we can help manage it. Family discount, of course." I smiled tightly. "I already have a manager. And bookings for the next 3 months." Emily frowned. "Mom, you can't be serious. You're hosting strangers? What if something happens?" "Something did happen, Emily," I said. "I learned I can take care of myself." We sat at the dining table, the same one where they once laughed while I served them. This time, I sat at the head. Mark leaned forward. "We just think you should consider selling while the market's high. You can move closer to us. We'll handle the paperwork." I looked him in the eye. "You mean you'll handle my money?" His smirk faded. "Now, come on, that's not fair." "No, Mark," I said softly. "What's not fair is working my whole life so someone else can decide what I should do with the only thing I own." Emily looked uneasy. "Mom, no one's trying to take anything from you. We just want what's best." I leaned back. "For me or for you?" The silence was heavy. Then I opened a folder on the table and slid out a paper. "This is the deed," I said. "It's legally protected. I've ensured this property cannot be transferred, sold, or mortgaged without my written consent, ever." Mark blinked. "You got a lawyer involved?" I smiled. "2 of them." His mother scoffed. "You're being paranoid. We're family." "Yes," I said quietly. "And that's exactly why I had to do it." Emily's face turned red. "So that's it? You're cutting us off?" "No," I said. "I'm setting boundaries. You're welcome to visit as guests, but not to manage, decide, or take over my life." Mark stood up. You're making a mistake, Evelyn. You're old. You'll need us eventually. I stood too, slow and steady. Maybe. But I'd rather grow old alone with dignity than live surrounded by people who see me as a wallet or a maid. He opened his mouth to reply, but I raised a hand. Meeting's over. They stormed out. Emily didn't even look back. I walked them to the porch and watched as their car disappeared again, dust trailing behind like the ghosts of old habits. Inside, I closed the door, that same symbol of silence and strength. I turned the key. And for the first time, locking the door didn't feel like shutting people out. It felt like protecting myself. That night, one of the retreat guests, a woman named Laura, found me sitting by the fire pit. She asked, "Rough day?" I smiled. "Liberating day." She nodded slowly. "Good for you. Sometimes family isn't blood. It's whoever doesn't make you feel small." Her words stayed with me. I looked up at the stars, feeling something I hadn't in years: safety. Not the kind others give you, but the kind you build yourself, brick by brick, boundary by boundary. Word spreads fast in small towns. Within weeks, people started talking about the divorced lady who turned her farmhouse into a women's refuge. Some whispered with admiration, others with judgment. But I didn't care. For the first time, gossip didn't hurt me. It advertised me. Bookings increased. Women came from nearby cities to stay for weekends. Some left thank you notes tucked under the pillows. One wrote, "You reminded me I'm not weak for starting over." I framed that note on the kitchen wall. That was my new badge of honor. But Emily didn't stop. One evening, I received a letter, not a text, not a call, a formal letter from her and Mark. They were requesting access to review the family property's usage and income, claiming it might affect inheritance rights. I laughed out loud. Inheritance rights? I was still very much alive. I called my lawyer, forwarded the letter, and he said calmly, "Don't worry, Mrs. Carter. They can't touch a thing. But if they keep pushing, we can take legal action for harassment." That word, harassment, hit me like a flashback. All those years, I thought harassment meant violence or cruelty. Now I knew it also meant subtle manipulation, guilt, and emotional blackmail. And I was done being the target. A few days later, I got a call from a local reporter. "Mrs. Carter," she said, "we heard about the Willow House. We'd love to do a feature, a story on women over 40 reinventing themselves." I hesitated. I'm not sure I'm the right person. But she insisted. "You're exactly the right person. People need to hear this." So I agreed. When the article came out, the headline read, "At 58, she was treated like a maid in her own home. Now she runs a sanctuary for women like her." My phone didn't stop ringing for days. Some calls were from women thanking me. Others were from people asking to volunteer or donate supplies. And one call was from Emily. "Mom, what did you do?" she snapped. "You put our family name in the paper. Everyone's calling, asking questions." I said quietly, "It's my story, Emily. Not yours." She groaned. "You're embarrassing us. Mark's colleagues read it. His mother is furious." I smiled softly. "Good. Maybe it'll teach them something about respect." She paused. "Are you trying to make us look bad?" I sighed. "No, honey. You did that yourself." Click. The call ended, but for once I wasn't shaking. I felt light. Free. Weeks passed. The Willow House became more than just a retreat. It became a community. Women started donating books, furniture, art supplies. One local artist painted a mural on the wall, a phoenix rising from ashes. Every time I walked past it, I smiled. Because that was me. One evening, I sat by the fire pit again with Laura, the woman who'd first said family isn't always blood. She asked, "Do you ever miss them?" I thought for a moment. Sometimes. But not the way they were. I missed the idea of them, who I hoped they'd be. She nodded. "That's honest." "Yeah," I said. "But I've learned not everyone deserves a front row seat to your comeback." A month later, I hosted a rebuild weekend. 10 women attended. We did journaling, meditation, and even a symbolic exercise. Everyone wrote a letter to someone who had hurt them and threw it into the fire. When it was my turn, I wrote, "Dear Emily, thank you for showing me how strong I had to become." I tossed it in. Watched the flame curl the paper. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like release. But life has a funny way of testing your strength the moment you think you've mastered it. 2 weeks later, I received a certified envelope, again from Emily. Only this time, it wasn't just a letter. It was a notice. They were claiming mental instability and requesting a court-ordered review of my estate. Apparently, the article and my business success had made them more desperate, and now they wanted me declared unfit to manage my own property. I laughed at first, but then the fear crept in, because this wasn't just words anymore. This was war. And if they thought I'd fold, they'd forgotten who raised them through poverty, divorce, and shame without breaking. I looked at the notice one more time, took a deep breath, and whispered, "All right then, you want to fight? You've got one." The notice sat on my kitchen table for hours. I must have read it 10 times, each word sinking like a stone. Petition for evaluation of mental competency. Concerns raised by immediate family. Protective order to oversee financial decisions. It was surreal. My own daughter was trying to have me declared mentally unfit, just so she could take control of my house. I remember whispering to myself, "She's not that cruel. She's just confused." But deep down, I knew better. This wasn't confusion. It was greed, wrapped in fake concern. That night, I barely slept. My mind replayed every moment from my past. The double shifts, the late nights waiting for Emily to come home, the times I went without so she could have everything. And now this? This betrayal cut deeper than any insult ever had. But I wasn't that same timid woman who used to apologize for existing. I had rebuilt myself once. I could defend myself now. So the next morning, I called my lawyer, Mr. Whitman. When I told him about the notice, he sighed. "Evelyn, this happens more often than you think. Families don't like when a woman takes control, especially later in life. But don't worry. We'll fight this." 2 days later, I sat in his office. The folder with all my documents lay open between us. Proof of ownership, bank statements, my clean medical records. He looked at me over his glasses. "They're trying to frame your independence as instability. Classic tactic. But we'll use logic and evidence." I nodded, but my hands were shaking. "What if the court believes them?" He smiled faintly. "Then we show them who you are. Calm, competent, and completely in control." The hearing date was set for the following month. In the meantime, Emily sent me text after text. "Mom, this isn't personal. We just want to make sure you're okay. You're being manipulated by strangers. This Willow House thing is dangerous." Each message was worse than the last. She was playing the victim now, pretending like I'd lost my mind just because I finally stood up for myself. So I stopped replying. Completely. Instead, I threw myself into preparing for the case. Mr. Whitman helped gather testimonials from the women who had stayed at the Willow House. Letters describing how I ran the place, handled bookings, managed finances, and supported them through their healing. Each letter became another brick in my wall of defense. The day of the hearing came. I wore a simple navy dress and tied my hair back neatly. No makeup, no drama, just confidence. Emily and Mark sat across the room with their lawyer. She wouldn't even meet my eyes. When my turn came to speak, I stood tall. "Your Honor," I began. "My daughter believes that because I'm a woman in my late 50s living alone, I must be unstable for choosing peace over dependence. But I assure you, I am not only of sound mind, I am of strong will." The judge watched me closely. "Mrs. Carter, what exactly do you do at the Willow House?" I smiled. "I help women remember who they are after the world breaks them. I suppose now I'm just doing the same for myself." A few people in the courtroom smiled. Even the judge's expression softened. Then came Emily's turn. Her lawyer stood and said, "Your Honor, our concern is that Mrs. Carter's recent actions, isolating herself, refusing family contact, starting a questionable business, indicate possible mental decline." He gestured toward Emily. "Her daughter only wants to ensure her mother's safety." Emily sniffled dramatically. "I love my mom," she said. "But she's not herself anymore. She's angry." I almost laughed. Angry? I'd been patient for 40 years. When it was time for cross-examination, my lawyer simply handed the judge a binder. Inside were the glowing letters from my guests, my business license, tax records, and the published article titled, "At 58, she found freedom and helped others do the same." The judge took his time flipping through it. Then he looked at Emily and said quietly, "From what I see, your mother seems perfectly capable." Emily's face went pale. When the session ended, the judge ruled in my favor. Case dismissed. Mark muttered something under his breath, but Emily stayed silent. She didn't even look at me as she walked out of the courtroom. I stood there, my hands trembling, not from fear but from victory. Mr. Whitman patted my shoulder. "You handled that with grace, Evelyn. You didn't just win a case. You won your freedom." That night, I returned to the Willow House. The fire pit was glowing. The women were there, waiting for me with tea and soft smiles. I told them what happened, and they cheered quietly, not out of pity, but pride. Laura handed me a mug and said, "See? You didn't fight them. You fought the version of yourself that used to stay quiet." She was right. And as I looked into the fire, I realized something powerful. Revenge isn't always loud or cruel. Sometimes, it's as simple as living better than they ever expected you to. For a few weeks, life returned to peace. The Willow house was thriving. Every room was booked, and every guest left lighter than when she came. We started a rebuild journal, where each woman wrote one line before she left, a message for the next guest. Some wrote things like, "It gets easier. You deserve peace. Healing isn't weakness." Every time I flipped through those pages, I felt stronger. Those words weren't just theirs anymore, they were mine too. Then, one morning, as I was sweeping the porch, a familiar car pulled into the gravel driveway. Emily. Alone this time. My stomach clenched, but I didn't move. I wasn't afraid anymore, just curious about what new version of concern she was bringing today. She stepped out, dressed perfectly as always, clutching her purse like it was armor. "Mom," she said softly, "can we talk?" I hesitated, then nodded toward the porch chairs. "Sure. Have a seat." She sat, looked around, and sighed. "It's nice here. Better than before." "Thank you," I said simply. She stayed quiet for a bit, then blurted out, "I'm sorry." I blinked. "For what?" Her eyes welled up. "For everything. For the court thing. For saying you were unstable. I didn't understand why you were shutting me out." I didn't rush to comfort her. For years, I'd been the one patching up every emotional crack in her life. This time, I let the silence do the work. Finally, I said, "I didn't shut you out, Emily. You walked over me, and I finally stood up." She nodded slowly, wiping her tears. "Mark pushed for the legal stuff. I went along with it because I thought maybe you had lost it. But after reading that article, after seeing how happy you looked," her voice broke, "I realized maybe I was the one who was lost." I studied her face. For the first time, I saw my daughter, not the judgment, not the entitlement, just the scared, uncertain woman beneath it. She whispered, "I missed you, Mom." That hit harder than I expected. I took a deep breath and said, "I miss the girl I raised. The one who believed in kindness before she believed in control." Her shoulders shook. "I don't know what happened to her." I smiled sadly. "Maybe you were just copying what you saw. I let people walk over me, and you thought that's how love worked. But it's not." She nodded, eyes red. "Can I come back sometimes? Just to visit? No big crowd, no drama." I thought for a moment, then said, "As long as you remember it's my home, not yours." She nodded. "I will." We sat there quietly, the wind carrying the sound of birds and distant laughter from the guests inside. For once, the silence between us wasn't heavy. It was healing. Over the next few weeks, Emily started visiting more often. Just her, sometimes with her daughter, my granddaughter Lily. Lily loved it here. She'd run through the garden, pick flowers, and tell me about school. One afternoon, she looked up at me and said, "Grandma, Mom says this is your dream house." I smiled. "Yes, sweetheart, it is." She tilted her head. "Can I have a dream house too someday?" I touched her hair gently. "Of course. But promise me one thing. Never let anyone make you feel guilty for building it." She grinned. "Promise." It's strange how peace sneaks up on you when you stop chasing it. My relationship with Emily wasn't perfect, but it was honest now. We spoke like equals, woman to woman, not mother to daughter. Sometimes she'd help the guests bake bread or clean the patio. Other times, she just sat by the fire and listened to the women's stories. I could see her changing, softening, understanding. And I realized something important. My revenge wasn't destroying her life. It was showing her another way to live. Then one evening, while we were locking up after a long day, Emily looked at me and said, "Mom, can I tell you something?" "Of course," I said. She hesitated. "I filed for divorce." I froze. "What?" She looked at the ground. "Mark's been controlling, manipulative. I kept thinking it was normal, because I saw how you used to stay quiet with Dad. But when you stood up for yourself, I saw that I could too." I reached for her hand. "Emily, I'm proud of you." Tears filled her eyes. I learned from the best. That night, as I sat alone on the porch, I watched the moonlight touch the garden I'd built with my own two hands. For years, I thought my story was about losing respect, fighting back, and reclaiming what was mine. But it was never just about that. It was about breaking a cycle. so that my daughter and granddaughter would never have to live like I did. Sometimes empowerment doesn't roar. Sometimes it's just a woman saying no more, and another woman finally listening. After Emily's confession, I couldn't sleep that night. Not because I was worried, because I finally understood something I never had before. All my life, I thought strength meant holding everything together. But maybe true strength was knowing when to let it fall apart. For the first time, I saw how my silence had shaped her. My constant yes, my fear of conflict, my desperate need to keep peace, it had taught her the wrong kind of love. And now she was unlearning it. Maybe both of us were. The next morning, she came downstairs early. The kitchen smelled like coffee and cinnamon. She smiled faintly. I made breakfast. I laughed. You? Cooking? That's a first. She shrugged. Lily helped. I figured you could use a break for once. I sat at the table and watched her move around the kitchen. Awkward but trying. There was something tender about that moment. No shouting, no tension, just two women who had finally stopped pretending. When we sat down, she said quietly, I've been thinking of starting over. Moving somewhere quiet with Lily. Maybe near here. I smiled. That's a good idea. She nodded. I don't have much saved up, but I'll manage. I took a sip of my coffee and said, You will. You're stronger than you think. You just forgot where you got it from. That afternoon, as she packed to leave, she hugged me tightly. Thank you for not hating me. I whispered. I never hated you, Emily. I just stopped letting you hurt me. She cried quietly. I held her, not as the mother who always fixed things, but as the woman who finally learned to let go. The next few months at the Willow House were a blur of beauty. We added more programs. Art therapy, self-defense workshops, financial planning sessions for single mothers. Women started calling it a safe village. We weren't just healing, we were rebuilding. One guest, a lawyer named Rebecca, said, Evelyn, you should expand this. Maybe open another retreat in town. I can help with the paperwork. I laughed. I'm almost 60, Rebecca. Expansion sounds exhausting. She grinned. You're not expanding. You're planting roots. Those words stuck. So I did it. With her help, I started a nonprofit foundation, the Willow Network, to fund therapy and housing for women leaving abusive or controlling situations. When the paperwork was finalized, I sat in my lawyer's office again, signing the last page. Mr. Whitman smiled. You've come a long way since we first met. I nodded. I guess I just needed a reason bigger than myself. When the local paper ran a story about the new foundation, it featured a photo of me standing in front of the Willow House with a group of women, all smiling. The headline read, From broken glass to open doors, how one woman's pain built a safe haven. I received hundreds of messages that week. Some from strangers, some from old co-workers, and one from Emily. Mom, I saw the article. I'm proud of you. I got a job nearby. Maybe Lily and I can come by this weekend. I smiled. Typed back one word. Always. That weekend they came, just the two of them. No crowd, no noise. Lily ran through the fields again while Emily and I sat on the porch. She handed me a small gift, a framed photo of the three of us, taken that morning. On the back she'd written, For the woman who taught me how to start over. I held it close and said, You know, Emily, this house used to feel too big for me. Too empty. Now it feels full. She nodded. Because you filled it with purpose. That night, after they left, I walked through the house turning off the lights one by one. The rooms no longer echoed with loneliness, they hummed with life. In the hallway, I paused by the mirror. For years, I avoided mirrors because I didn't like who I saw, tired, used, small. But tonight, I looked at her differently. The wrinkles didn't bother me. The gray streaks in my hair felt like medals, not flaws. I whispered, You did it. When I stepped outside, the sky was covered in stars. I sat on the porch swing, the same spot where I once cried, ashamed and humiliated, holding a broken tray of lemonade glasses. Now I smiled. Back then, I thought I'd lost everything. But all I really lost was the version of me that didn't know her worth. I looked up, letting the night breeze brush my face, and said softly, They called me emotional about my stuff. Turns out, I was just passionate about my life. If you were me, what would you have done? Comment below. Speech balloon. It's been a year since that first women's retreat at the Willow House. Sometimes I still wake up expecting to hear the old voices. My daughter's laughter mixed with criticism, Mark's sarcastic remarks, the sound of chaos in a house that never felt like mine. But now, when I open my eyes, I hear something different. Laughter from the garden. Coffee cups clinking. A group of women sharing stories over breakfast. My house isn't just a home anymore. It's a heartbeat. Today was special, the Willow Network's first anniversary. We planned a small celebration. Nothing fancy, just us, the women who made it all happen. The ones who refused to stay broken. I wore my favorite blue dress, the same one from the court hearing. It reminded me of the woman who stood her ground that day. By noon, the yard was filled with people, volunteers, guests, even a few local journalists. There was food, music, and a banner that read, "1 year of hope." Emily was there too, helping serve lemonade. Funny how life circles back. Lily handed me a small cupcake and said, "Grandma, make a wish." I closed my eyes. I didn't wish for more money or success. I just whispered, "May no woman ever forget her worth again." After lunch, Rebecca, the lawyer who helped me form the nonprofit, gave a small speech. When I first met Evelyn, she was fighting for her home. What I didn't realize was that she was also fighting for her soul, and for every woman who'd ever been told she was too emotional, too old, too weak. Today, because of her, over 100 women have received counseling, housing, or simply a place to breathe. People clapped. I tried not to cry. I looked around at all those faces, survivors, volunteers, daughters, mothers. Each one a reflection of who I could have become, or who I used to be. After the speeches, Emily came over. "Mom," she said softly, "I don't think I've ever told you this properly. I'm proud of you." I smiled. "You already did, when you chose yourself." She nodded, eyes shining. I've started volunteering here on weekends. Talking to the women. Listening. I touched her hand. "That's good. Healing others helps heal us too." She smiled, and for the first time in decades, I felt no distance between us, just peace. Later that evening, when the guests left, I sat alone on the porch watching the sunset over the fields. The sky was painted with gold and orange, the same colors that filled the mural inside, the phoenix rising. That phoenix had become more than a symbol. It was a promise, a reminder that no matter how broken life makes you, you can always rebuild, not as who you were, but as who you were meant to be. I went inside, poured myself a cup of tea, and looked at the framed photo on the wall. Me, Emily, and Lily on the porch steps, laughing. Below it hung another frame, the very first article about the Willow House. And next to it, in a small shadow box, was a piece of the broken glass from that day I dropped the lemonade tray. People asked why I kept it. Because that broken glass started everything. It was the moment I finally looked at myself and decided, enough. I often think about all the women who will come here after me, each with her own scars, each trying to find her footing again. Maybe one day, when I'm gone, they'll walk through this house and feel the same thing I do now, safety, strength, freedom. And maybe they'll sit by the same window, look out at the same field, and whisper to themselves, "I'm not broken. I'm becoming." As the sun disappeared and the porch lights flickered on, I locked the front door for the night. That old door, once a symbol of isolation, now felt like protection. I turned the key, smiled to myself, and said softly, "This house isn't my escape anymore. It's my legacy."
5 years later, I turned 63. The Willow Network had grown far beyond anything I'd imagined. What started as a single retreat had become a statewide movement. We now had 4 centers, dozens of volunteers, and hundreds of women whose lives had changed. Not because of me, but because they finally believed they could. I wasn't running everything anymore. My body couldn't handle the same late nights and long drives, and honestly, I didn't need to. Because there was someone ready to take over. Her name was Emily Carter. The first time I watched her lead a group session, I nearly cried. She stood at the front of the same wooden porch where I once served lemonade with shaking hands. Now she spoke to 20 women with calm, open confidence. "Ladies," she said, "this place began because one woman refused to be silent when everyone told her to be." She glanced at me in the crowd and smiled. "That woman is my mother." Everyone clapped. I covered my face, overwhelmed. All I ever wanted was for my daughter to respect me. Instead, she became the woman I'd always hoped to be. After the event, she came to sit beside me under the willow tree. "Mom," she said, "you know you don't have to do this forever. You've done your part." I smiled. "That's the thing about healing, Emily. It's never done, it just changes shape." She nodded. "Still, you deserve rest." I laughed softly. Maybe I'll finally take that trip I used to dream about, the one where I sit by a lake and read instead of worrying who's judging me. She chuckled. "You should. You've earned it." Later that week, I handed her a folder. "What's this?" she asked. "The paper's transferring full operational control of the Willow network to you," I said. She froze. "Mom, I can't." "You can," I interrupted gently. "And you should. This house doesn't belong to just one woman anymore. It belongs to every woman who ever thought she couldn't start again." Her eyes filled with tears. "I don't want to do this without you." I smiled. "You won't. I'll always be here, just not in every meeting." That evening, after she left, I walked through the house one last time. Not as the owner, but as the woman who had finally completed her journey. The scent of lavender candles filled the air. On the wall hung a new photo, Emily and Lily at last week's event, both laughing. Next to it was that same broken piece of glass from years ago. Only now, it was framed beside a small engraved plaque that read, "Sometimes what breaks you builds you." I stepped outside to the porch, my favorite place in the world. The air was warm, the crickets singing softly. For years, that porch had witnessed everything. My humiliation, my defiance, my triumph. And now it watched me rest. I sat down, closed my eyes, and listened to the sounds of life echoing from inside the house. Women talking, doors closing, laughter rising. That was the sound of legacy. When Lily came to visit that weekend, she ran up and said, "Grandma, Mom says when I'm big, I can run the Willow house too." I smiled and hugged her. "You can, sweetheart. But promise me something." She looked up eagerly. "What?" "Promise me you'll never wait until someone hurts you to realize you're strong." She grinned. "Promise." And just like that, I knew my story was safe in the right hands. As the sun dipped below the hills, I whispered to myself. They once said, "She gets emotional about her stuff." I smiled. Turns out, I was just emotional about my life. And that's nothing to apologize for. Because women like me, we're not fragile. We're foundations. And when we finally stand tall, the world trembles.